So I'd like to welcome Jennifer Swallow, General Counsel at TransferWise. So my first question for you is, what do you think the role of GC is in 2017, and how do you think it's changed since you first qualified?
I don't have any data on this, so and at TransferWise we're very into our data and making sure that we make statistically correct assessments. But in my own experience, I would say that there's been an evolution watching general counsels around me, and I've had the privilege of working with some awesome ones. Watching that, I feel like softer skills are coming more to the fore. So whereas in the past there might have been more of a command and control style, now it feels that, and certainly for me, and this is what I try to do, is just to be a business leader that happens to have some legal expertise. And so to do that and to make sure that there's a really deep level of trust with you and the people that you're working with, there needs to be a real fluidity of conversation and communication, and for that they need to see you as an equal at the table. So yeah, they would be some of my thoughts.
What do you consider the essential qualities to be for a GC in 2017?
Curiosity would be a big one. So I'm very conscious that lawyers can have a tendency towards superiority, and actually one of the things I strive for is a real sense of equality with everybody that I'm working with. And that, particularly in organisations like the one I'm working with and the ones I've worked with, they're very innovative environments. They're environments for people from all sorts of generations, but a lot of young. Your CEO is much younger than you. How do you feel about that, and how does that work? So a curiosity as to what they're trying to achieve, and also as to what the answer is. I've been really surprised, shall I say, happily so, by the quality of wisdom that comes out of all of the people around me, regardless of level. So always a curiosity as to whether you're the only one with the answer, and in fact often you're not the only one with the right answer. A boldness, I would say, as to your opinion. So I feel lawyers these days and general counsels can express themselves a lot more, perhaps on topics that weren't traditionally within the remit of, or perceived remit of, the general counsel's role. So I opine on anything that might come to the table of the leadership team, and I feel perfectly comfortable doing that. So I would say a boldness to express opinion. And as I mentioned, the softer skills side. So for me, it's people first, law second, and I'd carry that through.
What qualities do you look for when instructing external counsel or providers? Do you tend to hire for the firm, or, as you say, the individual?
We have gone for firms because we know that they're awesome in a particular area, and we want that awesomeness, and we don't have a relationship with them already. But very quickly it becomes about the relationship between two humans, and there's a trust that gets built up there. And also for me, that connection is very important. I need to trust the person that I'm working with, and there's a humour that comes for me. Humour is really important in the working day. You spend so much of your time at work. So that's a big thing. But yeah, we look for a disruptive mindset. We look for somebody that's prepared to see that there might be many ways up the mountain. There isn't just one way. So always looking for curiosity and an inquisitiveness about it, and looking for somebody that's prepared to invest in us in the same way that we're investing in them, because often with the subjects that we're working on, they're learning on our time. And so we want a decent price point and a value that reflects that co-working, if you like.
What does disruption mean to you?
Challenging the status quo. I mean, TransferWise was born out of trying to solve a really human problem. And I feel that's what the best disruption is actually about. So not just looking at how things have always been done, but looking at, well, where's the friction? What doesn't work well? And how can we evolve this situation? Forget what might be the case today. What actually is needed? So very purposeful disruption, not just because you can. And always obsessing about the customer, otherwise you will very quickly become irrelevant. And so as a lawyer, you can embody that disruption very easily. Your customer just happens to be, also I see our customers as our end customers, but also as the people that we're working with day to day. So I want to know, what are your problems, how can I help you? And then consider the most wacky option as to how to help them. Examples at TransferWise, we have managed to get a very important issue into the Conservative Party manifesto before the last election around stopping hidden fees. 86% of people don't realise that they're actually being charged in exchange rates, which to me is shocking. So getting that on the Conservative Party manifesto, I mean, That's disruptive. And then the way that we embody it in the legal team, all sorts of ideas to make sure that there's this equality of communication between the legal team and everyone else. So we have Ask Me Anything sessions where people can just turn up and ask literally any question they might have to the legal team. So for me, that was a little example of disruption in the workplace.
How do disruptor legal teams harness the millennial generation?
I've had the pleasure of working with a lot of young people in my last 4 years at Mind Candy, responsible for Moshi Monsters, and at TransferWise. In fact, when I joined TransferWise, the average age was 25, if I remember properly, which is pretty interesting, right? Like, well, what's that sort of environment like? And I'm not sure that I really buy into the stereotypes around millennials. My experience has been, and I referred to it earlier, that every human has so much potential. Every one of us has potential. So it's simply a question of tuning into what that person next to you's potential is. And I said I'd had the opportunity to work with lots of younger people, and the wisdom that comes out of their mouths, it's like amazing. I'm learning. So I feel like an attitude going into that is really important to harness the best. The other thing, really practical things, I would say, providing a framework in which they can be their best selves. So sometimes there can be also a striving for impact, making sure that there's a real purpose and they understand the context in which they're working, and then a bit of a framework so that they can get started and then watch the awesomeness flow.
How do disruptor legal teams leverage technology in the department?
One of the things I focus on is we don't want to be repeating things. As little repetition as possible, because that equals inefficiency, and I mean you could say that that's also disruptive. How do we do that? How do we strip out inefficiency and repetition? Technology can definitely help us there. Honestly, we're not. I wouldn't say we're particularly disruptive around the technology that we have today, but I would like to hire an engineer into the legal team to help us understand how we can be even more innovative. But what we do as a very baseline is we work collaboratively always. So we make the dish that would normally have been made in the kitchen with the diners in the kitchen, in the actual restaurant. So we do that through Google Documents with collaborative working. People can see us drafting. We use Slack for very fluid communications. I mentioned the Ask Legal Anything concept that turned into a Slack channel. So there's a lot of basic technology. What the next phase is, ask me in a year.
What's the most efficient way to structure your disruptor legal team?
There are many ways up the mountain of what's the right way to organise a department. So I'll just speak from what I've seen to work well. And also in the context of really engaging your people and thinking towards the future and their own development as well. Companies like TransferWise want to make sure that there is the lowest price point possible for the customer. So you're always going to have cost constraints, and it's your responsibility to have those cost constraints and to be responsible around spend. So the way I structure it is to have pretty senior people who have a bench strength across a number of areas, or at least are prepared to have a bench strength across a number of areas. So generalists, but they can deploy at a deep level in particular areas of expertise. And then each of the team can lean on each other's expertise. So you've got complementary depth, but an ability to work as a generalist. So that's what works well for us. The other thing that we're doing, which I'm loving, is we're really engaging other parts of our organisation who aren't lawyers. So TransferWise is a company that was founded by 2 Estonians. Estonia is the most technologically advanced country in the world, as I understand it, and it's amazing. They also really respect learning. So you have a lot of people with very advanced degrees and a depth of curiosity that I haven't experienced before. So there are a lot of people who know a lot more at a deep level about subjects than I do and that we do. So we're working with people who might have a deep understanding of the regulations in Brazil. Well, great. Does it have to be a lawyer in the legal team that does that? So in many ways, what's the legal team? Maybe the legal team's actually every person in the company that has an interest and an ability.
So thank you very much for joining us today. I hope you enjoyed the exchange.
You're welcome. Thanks.
Thank you.